KMSU.
Yes, Dustin there?
This is Dustin.
Yo, hey, it's Richie Ramone.
Richie, how you doing?
Good, great.
It's great to have you on today. I'm here with my co-host, Ton.
Hey there, how you doing?
Hi, great.
Awesome. It's a pleasure to have you on. If you're ready, we'll go ahead and get started.
Yeah, sure. Thanks for having me.
No problem. It's our pleasure again. So I guess we'll start off asking you kind of how you got started in playing music in general.
How I got started? I come from, there's 5 kids in my family. I have an older brother, sister, and 2 younger sisters. And, you know, my parents always had kids learn an instrument as a hobby, you know. And so we all took an instrument, and mine was drums, and I stayed with it. And, you know, that's how it worked. You know, it started really, I remember when I was in kindergarten, I used to, when we had recess, there'd be that dirty box in the corner, and there'd be all instruments in it, and I wouldn't take anything to blow into. I'd always take, like, sand blocks or something rhythmic. So that's kind of how that all started. So I started at a really young age.
So then talk to us a little bit about, I mean, did you play in some bands and stuff, and I guess the road up to getting the opportunity to become the drummer for the Ramones?
Yeah, well, I played in a bunch of bands. My brother Lenny, he's, you know, like 5 years older than me. So I was always ahead of the curve, you know, listening to his music back in the day. And, you know, I was like already 11, 12 playing in like wedding bands and bars and everything. You had to have this thing called an ABC card if you were underage. And so I started playing live really young. I played in the Catskill Mountains in New York at all those nightclubs. And then a bunch of other, you know, different bands along the way. You know, we all start in cover bands where we play other people's songs. And then, you know, then the original thing, the music bites you, and then you want to do that. So the way I got in the Ramones was I was hanging out in Brooklyn, New York at the Shirts house. The Shirts were, you know, a popular band back then. And we were just hanging out, and one of the roadies for the Ramones, a good friend of mine, was leaving. I said, "Where you going?" He said, "I'm going to the Ramones auditioning drummers." And I told him, "Well, tell him to put my name in the hat," or some shit like that, you know. And a week later, I got a call, and you know, that's how it all happened. And here I am today, and you know, a lot to be said about being in the right, you know, spot at the right time. You know, you got to be lucky in this business.
Definitely. Can you describe a little bit about when you first started with the Ramones? I mean, Tommy Ramone laid down, you know, kind of an iconic drum sound, and then Marky was there. Was it difficult to kind of pick up there in that established band?
No, not really. The thing that you know, when I came into the band, the speed core, everything was going really fast, and our shows just ended up getting faster and faster. It was just a sign of the times. It wasn't planned, but you know, all the other bands were playing all that fast stuff, so our songs got really fast. And the biggest thing about playing this kind of music is, you know, getting your right wrist, you know, super fast, you know, playing on that hi-hat. That's, you know, the biggest training you got to go through. So I would, you know, practice on a pillow so the stick wouldn't bounce back at me, you know, so you almost had to lift it each time and develop the wrist, because I play with all wrists, not so much in the fingers. And I'd say that was the hardest thing, you know.
You kind of came from more of I guess you'd call like a jazz background, so did you feel like this was maybe a step backwards? Or
No, I never came from a jazz background.
Or at least you did some kind of jazzy, maybe West Side Story style things?
I did West Side Story, yeah,
Okay.
That was with the symphony, but, you know, I came from a diverse background of everything, you know. Yeah, I did listen to jazz and rock and funk, you know, being my brother was a horn player, played a lot of funk, and I brought that element into, you know, rock and roll, which is really cool. I forgot the question, but what did you want to know?
Well, I'll actually move on here and ask you, you know, when you were in the group, obviously Joey, Johnny, Dee Dee, they were kind of like all opposite personalities. Was it difficult to kind of coexist, and were you kind of like the mediator between them, or what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. Someone asked me that the other day, and, you know, when new blood comes in, it's almost like a weird, fresh slate, you know. It adds a lot of energy to the band. People tend to get along a little more, and maybe they don't want to show, their emotions as much, but I never really noticed that. I was a kid, much younger then. I'm 24 years old, and man, this was my first national act, so I never paid attention. And Joey took me under his wing immediately. Like we became friends instantaneously. So there was no pressure. There was nothing. Maybe the first couple gigs there were pressure. You had to learn a lot of songs with them.
Yeah.
So they said, hey, learn 40 songs in 3 days. Even though you still have to know where the songs go. You know what I'm saying? They may all keep the same beat or whatever, but there's still certain cuts you have to know in every song. So that was probably the hardest, learning all that stuff so fast.
Well, then, of course, it's well documented around that time Joey and Johnny really weren't the best of friends. Was that causing any issues, off stage or when you guys were making records? Was that always a constant thing to deal with?
No, they didn't, they didn't really talk that much. But it wasn't like, fuck you every time they walked by each other, They just didn't really talk that much, and I don't know. When we had to do the business, we did the business, It wasn't like, we hung out with Johnny or ever, when we had days off. We never saw Johnny. He did his own thing. I always hung out with Joey, and then Dee Dee and I would hang out too sometimes and write, but it wasn't like you'd see the band all go to a club or something, It wasn't one of those things. We all led kind of our separate lives, especially Johnny. He was mysterious.
And you seem to start having a lot more involvement with the whole songwriting and started even singing a little bit.
Right.
Can you talk to us about, how did that end up taking place?
Again, through, Joe, man. Joe was extremely supportive. Joe, he got me. He understood my talent. He knew what I could do, and he exploited it. He didn't say, hey, I'm the singer, don't do that, or don't write songs for the band, or he just pushed me. And before, by the end, man, I was singing like half the show with him. It added a lot of excitement having another vocal up there, backing him up, and even, I wrote You Can't Say Anything Nice, I had no intentions of singing that on the Ramones record, but Joey said, no, you sing it. I kept saying, no, you're the singer, you sing it. So, that's just the kind of guy he was. He was totally, extremely supportive and very secure in his own right. You got to be secure to let someone take a little focus that way,
The Ramones seemed to be like a real well-oiled machine that they didn't really let a lot of, outside influence in. So it must have said a lot about you to have them allow you to do that sort of thing.
Yeah, it was really cool, This was, besides all the stuff you read about the fighting and all this stuff, maybe it's a little overdone, but man, we got backstage when it was time to do the show. It was total pro, nobody was drunk or anything like that. You know what I'm saying? It was just do the show, and we did a pro show, and for that hour, we entertained, and we didn't let anybody, we didn't let anything going in our personal lives affect us once we, went through the smoke and hit the stage. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It was just like, okay, now it's time to work. And you got to remember, when you're on tour, your show's an hour long. You're working an hour a day. So there's all the rest of the time is spent eating, drinking, and traveling. So you do spend a lot of off time together. But, when I was in there was no fighting or, fist fights or knives being pulled. I don't know. Maybe the Jersey boy calmed things down for a while.
Well, one thing we'd like to get your thoughts on, with the Ramones, they were, listed by so many huge monster bands, Metallica and Green Day and U2 and all these bands as a major influence, but for some reason they weren't able to get that success in the States as they were in other countries. Why do you suppose that is?
I think, the radio wouldn't play them, and back then MTV was big. Videos were big, when they started with that in the 80s, and MTV wouldn't play the videos. So they just became, we were the, greatest club band around, that's what it was. If you don't get the airplay and you don't get that, look at the records, maybe, the Phil Spector album. Maybe that sold 100,000 copies, but we never sold, tons of records either. So it kind of stayed like this cult thing, It was a cult following. We had millions of loyal fans, wherever we went, man. These people, they knew everything about you, it was kind of cool. But I don't know exactly, but I just think it's, radio play and those videos that didn't give us the attention. Joey was funny. He'd say, "Oh, Richie, this is it. This record, this song, blah blah blah. This is going to be the one." But nothing ever really happened, on a major scale.
Yeah, it's got to be discouraging. Did any of
that?
It
was to Joey because he really wanted a hit. Johnny didn't really care. Johnny just wanted to make his money and stay, keep that cult following. But Joey, he wanted to play Madison Square Garden every week. He deserved it, but it just never happened. So it's too bad.
So can you talk to us a bit? I mean, you eventually left the band. Can you talk to us kind of about why you did?
Well, everyone knows that story. I mean, Johnny and I's relationship was failing. I fought for a long time about getting a cut of the merchandise. That never happened. When it was in full support with Joe and Dee Dee, but when John would say no, then they kind of backed off. You know what I'm saying? So it became like that. It was even halfway to Sanity. I mixed like half of that record, and I wanted credit. They wouldn't give me credit for that. It was like Be Me, Richard, Reinhardt, when you want me to be that, and then I'm Richie Ramone when you want me to be that. It just wasn't working right. After 5 years, I expected to get a little more due, and it just wasn't working. Also, Sire, that was the last album we were with Sire, so Sire dropped us after, halfway to Sanity. So everything was kind of rocky at that point, and I just got fed up. I was little punk kid, and I was like, "Fuck this, I'm gone." Maybe it wasn't the best thing to do, but you can't go backwards. You just you make a decision in life, be a man, and just go with it. Don't keep rethinking yourself.
Well, when you left the band, I mean, you went on to do some other things. We mentioned the West Side Story. Can you tell us a few other things that you really enjoyed doing after you left the Ramones?
After I left the Ramones, I moved to Los Angeles, and played in a bunch of different bands here, and nothing really happened. So, I laid down the sticks for a while and just chilled. And then, when you're not playing for a long time, something eats at you. So I decided I wanted to come out and I wanted to do this symphony thing. And was it 2007 or something? And, I remember back, the drum guy there with Buddy Rich and all that stuff. So West Side Story was a great piece, and I arranged it with a friend of mine, and it was really cool. It was this guy out there got to really drum in a different way, and I really enjoyed that. And then, things went further, and I started writing some more, and, that's how it happened.
Well,
have you seen any of that West Side Story online or anything? It's pretty cool.
I did look at a few things on there.
Yeah.
I noticed you've also got a new album that came out just recently called Entitled. Do you want to give us kind of details on that or what that's all about?
Well, like I said, I started writing and talking to people, and they said you should do a record, and I said, all right, let's do it. And so Entitled is actually my first, album I ever put out myself. It's kind of weird. You learn a lot putting out your own record, there's a lot of work involved. And so I got together a band and we made the record, I don't know what else you want to know about that. It's, I love the album, it came out like I wanted to. It took a long time, it's been like a year and a half now since we started recording, and mixing takes so long, you get so close to it. Every time you listen to it, you hear something else. So the mixing took like 7 months. And then you got to shop for a record deal, and that takes some time getting the right record deal. And then once you get the record deal, then you sit another 90 days before you get shelf space to put it out. So it's a big process, and, you you got to keep your head above water, I mean, just, try to stay busy. It's more than I really, I didn't think it was that tough, but it was tough.
Yeah.
To get it all done.
Crazy.
Then you got artwork, and you got, it's a big, big undertaking. So, but it all worked out, and, we're getting ready to tour soon. So.
That's awesome. It sounds crazy, but we're looking forward to it. Should be good.
Yeah. The live show is great. I mean, my sound crosses into metal a little. I have Tommy Bolin, Bolan. He was in Warlock back, with Dora Pesh, and he's a killer shredder. And then I have Ben on rhythm guitar. He's my guy. He plays drums too, so I'm able to go to the front and get in the kids' faces once in a while. I get off the drums instead of singing and playing drums all night. And Claire Mistake, she was an Anti-Product. She's from London, and it's just a well-oiled machine, and a bunch of good people. And it's a high energy show, and that's what I like. I like performing so kids could bang their heads. You hear a lot of music today, and it sounds all great, driving in your car. But, when you go to a live show, there's got to be, like, raw energy happening, and that's what we got,
Awesome.
There's one more Ramones question we meant to ask before we get too far. I want to ask you about Dee Dee's Funky Man period. Did you have any memories of that or any say on the album?
I co-produced that record, and that song. There was a time, when Dee Dee was getting into rap, he would used to be so funny. His wife Vera at the time would call me like, Dee Dee and I were morning people, I mean, he on the road, he'd come to my room at like 8:30 in the morning, wanting to smoke, I mean, he didn't sleep late, either do I, and he'd come in and, his wife would say, hey, Dee Dee's, on the subway now. It would be like 7:38 in the morning. He should be at your house by 8:30. So we would start, I had an 8-track machine there. He'd come to my apartment in Manhattan. And we wrote a bunch of, I guess you call them rap stuff. I would write all the music, he'd bring all the words. And that was just what was going on then, It was kind of cool. It's really different. And I remember, when he finally made that video, we went and watched it in the club. But he's funny. He said, he says, he wasn't that great at it, but he enjoyed it, It's nice to break away and do something totally opposite, Otherwise you can get a little stagnant, It's nice to do other things, and that's kind of why I did West Side Story, which is complete opposite of, rock and roll. The audience is different. It's filled with politicians and ex-governors and, people like that. It's really different. So I just think it's great to do, try to do all kinds of things if you can,
Well, with that being said, after, the tour for this new album is over with, is there anything upcoming or anything you're going to be working on next?
There's some things I really don't want to talk about right now, which I really can't, but yeah, there's some cool things in the works, and, down the road I'll probably do another piece on, maybe a James Bond piece with the symphony. But, right now we're just getting focused, and I think 2014 I'll just be touring all year with this Entitled record. So it'll be a little ways out, and I'm just really excited, I'm really excited to tour the States. I haven't toured the States in so long, we've been to Australia and UK and, naturally South America. But, the States I haven't been in, so that's going to be kind of fun. We're supposed to start in February in the States.
Awesome.
Which is going to be cold when you go through Chicago, but, I hope to have good heat.
Well, we look forward to it.
No, that's great. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it, too.
Excellent.
Awesome. Well, thanks a lot for being on the show with us.
Yeah, so look for me, when you see us in February, make sure you come and see me. I'm sure we'll be coming near you,
Yeah, definitely. I got to say on a personal note, a lot of people say the Ramones, greatest rock band of all time. I would be one of them, and it's been an honor to have you on the show today.
All right. Thank you so much. Thanks for having me, guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.